obviously he's going to have to step up. So what do you see of him? How much is he going to be counted on going forward?
Yeah, I mean, Ben, the number one thing is Ben plays the game the right way. Plays fast, plays physical. Just like any freshman, there's gonna be, no matter when you start playing or how much you start playing, there's always a learning curve, and so, we just got to keep him in good situations and good positions, and Ben will be fine.
You're getting into your depth a little bit. You had some guys banged up, but I guess the time was you able to adjust and move guys around. Are you good with where you're at right now with what you got?
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's just the nature of any season in our league. It's going to happen. It's a matter of when. And so you got to take, the off week coming a good time, and you got to take that time, and you got to get guys ready. But we got to make sure, again, that we keep guys in what they can do and where they can do it, and I think we'll be fine.
When you start thinking depth plans, how extensive do you go? Even if you're not practicing a guy, they go, if I need a seventh corner, here's what we got to do. Or
do you have a seventh corner?
Well, there's two things you're not going to do. You're not going to play with 10, and I'm not going out there. All right, so or Shadon or Dante or Jeff, we're not going to play a play. So, you got to take, you got to figure it out. And so, luckily, again, the off week couldn't have come at a better time. But you just got to, again, you got the pieces are the pieces, and you got to figure out, where and what and how, and I think that, again, bad coaching is asking somebody to do something that they can't do. So, as long as we don't do that, I think we'll be all right.
Piece that together way in advance, or did you just do stuff on the fly?
Yeah, you always try to go through as many scenarios as you can without going down a rabbit hole of reps that are the point of diminishing returns that you may not get into. So, but yeah, you work some things through fall camp and talk about some scenarios and maybe even here and there work a package if this happens or if this happens. But I don't think we're to that point yet.
Number one concern for this team, wide receivers, downfield passing game skill.
Yeah, I mean it's essentially just a Big 12 offense, explosive. Even on the underneath game, quarterback scramble, very explosive. There's good at receiver. Is it anybody that we have played or maybe will play? So that obviously has its challenges.
QB run, do they do QB power? What do they do?
Yeah, it's a mixture. It's a little bit of all that you see. There's some design quarterback runs. There's some reads. And there's some RPOs, so it's a little bit of mixed bag of everything you see with a quarterback like him.
You talked about a few weeks ago against Texas Tech in particular about how you told the team at halftime, hey, the tempo's going to even pick up more, it's going to get even faster. Is that something that you're already trying to instill in the team that, hey, it could actually be like that the entire game against Dana?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that, the tempo aspect of football is something that you can't just show up on Monday of a game and say, all right. And so spring, summer, fall camp, against our own offense, and Neil knows this, we constantly work the scenarios, work the substitution scenarios. We go into every single game against every single opponent planning for a tempo style of offense, and we have the time during the week where we work. It's as much about the operation as it is the actual what you're seeing.
Consider this maybe one of the bigger tests, I guess maybe is a better question.
Yeah, I mean, it's TCU. That's about as fast as a team as we've played in recent years. But whether it's the difference between, I think Texas Tech was, had an average of 14 or 15, and I think TCU had an average of 12 seconds down to 10. So if you talk about 2 or 3 seconds, that's really not that big of a difference. So, or at least not to change any type of game plan or anything. So we always prepare for it.
Ben said that he's the mic and Lee's the wheel, and I know they're largely interchangeable, but it's different than what he was before, I guess, when Ben started off at Will, I guess. Just something, obviously there's something you like about that particular arrangement more than the opposite. Yeah,
I just think that it fits, the skill set probably a little better, and they're really not enough difference to justify that being a huge change. I mean, Lee could bump over there and play it as well as Ben, and Ben could jump back in and play Will. You know, it's just kind of where we thought the better positions for both Trey and Ben were going into the year. And obviously it could change week to week based on what we're seeing. So it's really not that big a difference in the two. Definitely not the two players, other than experience would be the only difference between those two.
You talked before about how just consistent Ed is about his motor and how hard he plays consistently. It's kind of surprising, but he said that he only has drawn one holding penalty in all that time. For as hard as he goes, as consistent. That doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense, does it?
Yeah, there's a lot of holding penalties. There's a lot of lack of holding penalties that don't make a whole lot of sense. But you know, and Penn State didn't have one the whole game, so that's a first for me. But it's you know, Eddie is, you know, he and the thing about the thing that sticks out to me about what you just said is you'll never hear him complain about that. He just keeps playing. So.
Has that kind of been Eddie and Mike? Has the success of this defensive line kind of come just from effort? I mean, the guys just straight in, which is the word.
Yeah, I mean, I think that here's what I'll say about the question you just asked is, so you try to you're going to go out and try to find the absolute best player that you can find, especially up at any position. All right, and there's all kinds of intangibles of what makes a good player a great player, and hopefully a lot of times it's talent. Okay, well, in Eddie's case, you take a guy who plays essentially 1 year of high school ball, gets tied to a guy that's promoting international players throughout the states, and we're not the only school that has them, but and a guy that's as far as body type and athleticism about average for the position, and the easiest way to say it, like he's not Dante Stills as far as athletic ability, but what happens is a guy like that gets into year 2, year 3 of his career, and he starts having a lot of success. Well, then you have other guys that are really, really talented maybe at other positions on your roster, and they start to see that maybe aren't having that type of success, whether it's statistics in a game or accolades or it's awards amongst the team or whatever it is. And so it becomes infectious on how that guy's having success. And especially around in that room where a guy, you know, talent is talent, and people and guys see that, and they know, all right, maybe I'm more talented than him, but he's having success because of how he's doing things, whether it's training, the off season, and obviously how Eddie plays, just using that as an example. And so that becomes infectious. And if that becomes infectious, you got a chance. Because if you don't have the way Eddie plays on defense, you don't have a defense. So that's the best way to put that.
Especially during the winning streak, you guys did a lot better in the second half as opposed to the first half. Is it as simple as just making the right adjustments at halftime, or is there something bigger than that, an emphasis maybe being made in the second half?
I mean, I think it goes game by game. There are some times when you adjust some things. There are times when you're making simple mistakes that maybe you haven't made, or for whatever reason. You know, TCU in particular, you know, the 3 touchdowns were 3 minute mistakes. You know, 2 were just guys being in the landmark that they weren't supposed to be in, and then only one was a missed assignment. And so, you know, again, you're not going to go in and reinvent the wheel. You just have to, if you like what you have, you go in and obviously correct those, and then sometimes that other teams are exploiting what you have done, or they've got a beat on whatever it is, and you have to, all right, we can't do this, we have to do this, but it has to be within the structure of your defense from day one. So I think for our season up to this point, it's just been a little bit of both of those. And then sometimes it's a mental thing. Maybe you know, we're not, you know, I didn't think we didn't tackle well in the first half against TCU. You're obviously not going to go into halftime and start tackling each other, you know, so that's more of a mentality. But you know, sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's you know, sometimes you got to wake up. You know, it can be anything. I think it's been a little bit of both this season, or a little bit of all of those things this season.
There was a
Factor into that as well.
Sorry, go ahead.
Depth factor into that as well. Those improvements.
I mean, yeah, it can be. You know, if it you know, if that's the type of game that it is, or an unexpected injury has happened, and you have a guy that's maybe not as ready, you know, or behind him, or wasn't expecting to have that kind of burden put on his shoulder. I say burden, I mean have that kind of responsibility put on his shoulders. You could have some of that, but it's also, again, that should never be the case, because of the way your practice is built throughout the week. You're spending as much time through those scenarios getting those guys ready, and they have to be ready. So again, it's a little bit of all of it.
I believe it was after the Burns injury, but there was an image from the TCU game of you and Neo, I believe, like kind of in the center of the defense and talking to the defense. Anything you can share that you guys said to them, or that you said to them, kind of like a rallying cry almost?
Well, I mean, I really just told them, like, look, nobody's there's that, you know, there's only one guy can get on that stretcher in that ambulance. Nobody's going with him. So the only thing we can do from this point is pick him up, and then have the guy around, you know, the next guy step up. And so really it was just kind of a refocus, you know, re-challenge, understand that hey, you know, there's a lot of ball left to be played, and we got to do our job, and our job is simply get the ball back to our offense. And however we got to do that, that's how it is. And so guys responded. It was just kind of a refocus.
That stature, you think of this defense is playing through things and not really getting bothered. It seems like this group has been able to do that, whether it's guys getting hurt and some of the next guy coming up, or just dealing with some of the things you've had to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, it's a tribute, you know, to two things. It's the guys that step up and are leaders for us. You know, if you ask them, you know, every guy is going to mention Beanie, and every guy is going to mention Lee, and every guy is going to probably mention Mike and Eddie, and Sean, and they're going to they go as they, you know, the whole group goes as they go. And so it's a tribute to them, and it's also a tribute to how every assistant coach handles their rooms and the message every single week, and getting them prepared for when those things happen, because at the end of the day, it's like with Aubrey, like, you know, we got to have the next person step in and execute what the game plan is, and if we have to adjust that, we got to adjust that, but shouldn't have to that much. That guy should be ready to go. So it's tribute to our leadership and to our assistant coaches, every one of our position coaches.
All those guys you mentioned, have they played to your expectations or exceeded it?
You know, I mean, I think that them and everybody in the locker room on the defensive side of the ball, if you look at everybody probably outside this building, they probably have played to and exceeded them, but we have not, as far as ourselves and the guys, they haven't played close to what they know, what they believe that they can, and we haven't played anywhere near our good as how they want to play, and we haven't played our best game. There's so many things that we can clean up. We have this through 5 games, and so, you know, again, I think that they probably have to everybody else's, but not to their own, and they know that they strive, they talk about it. You know, we got to play better.
Well, what is that? I mean, collectively. I mean, I know you can't play the perfect game, but you strive to do that.
Correct.
What in your eyes? What is that?
I mean, win the game at the end of the day. And I think it's as simple as this. You know, look at the TCU game. And our guys know this. I'm not saying anything to you I haven't said to them. But there are 3 touchdowns that were those first half touchdowns were not earned. All right, and there was critical mistakes, 3 critical mistakes we made that directly led to points. All right, and so are you going to play a perfect game? No. Are you going to pitch a shutout every game? More than likely not, especially in our league. But you do strive for that. But when you do look at how those points, a team gets those points, then that's where they know the improvement is. And it's hard sometimes because you have to point that out when everybody's feeling, really good, and after a win, and you have to go correct those things. That's not all the time what guys want to hear, but that's what you have to do. So as long as we just correct those mistakes, and then sometimes you're gonna, you run up against good offense, and you tip your hat and you move on. But we've made some critical mistakes, especially in that game. We just got to get them cleaned up, and so that's what they want to.
Neil gave us some insight on some of the young guys that aren't maybe playing a whole lot yet in their development. What about on your side, the young D linemen, maybe a Stokes or Raleigh Collins? Just how have they come along this fall?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start up front. It's Corey McIntyre is a young guy that's really, I think, got a bright future. He's really explosive, in stature, pretty, not average, but he's not a 5'6", 6'6" guy. He's extremely explosive, plays with leverage, plays with quickness. Very similar to a Darius Steele's type of skill set, probably a little bit bigger. Obviously, we've talked about Ben. I know Josiah's on an injury, but he's in the film room as much as the guys that are playing are, and he just loves football, that much. James Hurd, Orion Fisher on our edge guys, and Hurd is kind of a multi. He's kind of a Swiss Army knife type player between the front and the linebacker. Orion Fisher is a guy that is extremely long, but just like a lot of long guys, you guys have heard me talk about, their strength has to catch up with their body. So he's in that phase, but he's going to be a good player. Riley and Christian, coming along, and really one of the areas they could really help us right now is special teams, and they're doing that. They're coming along as the season goes on. The Jackson twins are guys. Josiah's playing safety now, and Jordan has been was a high school running back, but has been a really has shown a lot of flashes at corner for us. So those are just a couple of guys.
Pass playing safety. I don't know how close you'd be using him this week or this month in safety, but just the fact that, given your situation now in the secondary, that he could do that and help you somehow or another, how valuable is that, and like what would it take to get him?
Yeah, I mean, anybody any player that has done it before, obviously you feel comfortable putting them there again. I don't think that's a point that we'll have to get to. But I mean, he could, if in an emergency situation, if we had to.
How do you view this? You're in the position to make interceptions, but you're not making them, and there were a couple that could have been touchdowns. Yeah. I mean, the good news is they're where they're supposed to be. Then you just got to make the plays, right?
Yeah, I mean, catching the ball is a skill that can be improved. And on the defensive side of the ball. Unlike a receiver, Unlike a receiver, it's hard to spend, 6 periods a day on the jugs machine. We got other things we got to do, So, we joke about it, and it's easy to joke about it coming off of a win, right. But those are opportunities that we have to take advantage of. Some of those catches are hard, and some of those are contested. Catches. I know that Anthony drops one and Beanie drops one, and the throw is off the fingers or a little high, a little sideways, through a receiver. Obviously, both guys are trying to get to the ball, so some of those I say contested. Shadon calls them distracted catches. Some of those aren't easy, but the ones that low and in space, we got to make those. And so that's just something that on the side, and a couple of minutes here and there, and in between a drill, or maybe the guy's not on the special teams, just constantly working. It's a skill that can be improved. It's just it's just kind of hard sometimes defensively, because you got tackling, block destruction, all these things you're trying to work. So but we got to make those.
Okay, thank you, Coach.
Thank you.